Okay, everybody, we are live.
Hello.
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 Hey, everybody.
I'm having some issues. Hold on.
Oh, am I muted? Should I do that?
Okay, here we go. All right, here we are with Thursday Night Book Club. Um, yeah, there's haters already. Hey, Ricky Hunt. Hey, Bubba Husky. Hey, Aya. Good to see y'all. So tonight, Misha's back. She missed us, and Misha's back. And so we're having a girls' night, and tonight we've got LMR back again, and Sarah's going to be doing our overview. But before that, I'll let y'all know me, Jen, Lady Wolverton. I'll let everybody introduce themselves separately. Misha.
Hello, everyone. This is Misha Houston. Thank you so much for your wonderful welcome. It's been a little rough for me these past few weeks, but I missed everyone, and I'm just so happy to be back and happy to meet a new face and happy to know that the book club is still going on without me. I didn't want for the book club to, to crumble without me being here, and I'm so very happy that I'm here and is able to be here, with you guys tonight. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you want to find me, check me out on Facebook. Even though I'm not on it right now, check me out on Instagram. Check me out on the Capcom Fighters Network under Misha 3700. I'm thinking about making a Discord as well. So maybe I'll put the link in later on.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. It's LMR. I'm usually in the comments everywhere, and you can find me at my two channels. I have a writing channel, Living My Rhapsody, and then a reviews channel called Living Reviews, where I do reviews of stuff in general, anything, everything. It's kind of surprise whenever you get there. You never know. Be careful what you click on if you're under 18. Some comments are different. So again, Jen, thank you so much for allowing me to be a guest here. It's really, really awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Sarah?
Is it my turn? Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm too big of a wimp to even maintain my own channel. You mentioned some mean comments. Like, thank you for having me. I've been, my name is Sara. I am very happy to be a part of this. And I'm on Twitter. I don't really do anything fun there, but, I've been on Amino. And can I actually say one thing about that?
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
Amino. Last week I was babbling about Dragon Seed and like how the first night, right of the first night, and all the stuff about the South. That I never said it was. I think in my mind I was thinking it was the Riverlands, and it was on Dragonstone that happened. So it was just really bothering me that I might have made that mistake, and I wanted to fix it. Sansa. Sansa too. All right. So I'm driving. We broke this down into beginning, middle, end. Basically, it starts with Sansa. I'm going to pull up some notes. She is riding to the hands Tourney in a litter with Septim Ordain and Jane Poole. It's all the splendor. Misha, you described it so beautifully. Do you want to eloquently describe the scene over when she's riding in the litter?
Yes, I certainly can. Yes, she is arriving at the hands Tourney. Now, before I go into the hands Tourney, I kind of want to go back a little bit, just for a hair. Eddard himself, sees the place for what it is. The city itself is kind of dilapidated. There are a lot of commoners. There are many more commoners than there are, of the upper rich class. and he has been down in flea bottom, and he has seen how unattractive and horrible things are. But Sansa, in contrast, does not see that at all. She rides to the litter in a golden, in a golden litter with a golden silk curtain in front of her. And that's how she sees the world. She, does not quite see the ugliness of it just yet, but she will come to see the ugliness of it later on. Throughout this entire chapter, it starts out beautiful for Sansa, but then slowly but surely it disintegrates, and it's an entropy. It's a downward, path for her. She starts off smiling, and by the end of the chapter, she's threatened. Her life is threatened. So, I mean, this is how it is. This is the Sansa story. She wants everything to be beautiful because she herself is beautiful inside and out. And she wants to assume that the world is as beautiful as she is. And she's kind of the representation of how things should be and not how things truly are. She, is a beautiful person inside and out, and she's young and she's starry eyed. And it starts out that way. She sees the exterior beauty of it, but, it's just beauty covering covering grotesqueness. So, I mean, that's pretty much the theme that I saw running through the chapter. It starts out beautiful for Sansa, and slowly but surely, it takes a downward turn. Now, she's riding through the litter, and she's making her way to the tournament, and the tournament is very beautiful. The tournament, is through her eyes, and yes, Sarah.
I just wanted to throw in a few details about the tournament. All of the Kingsguard are in their pure white cloaks except Jaime, who wears his gilded armor. Mm-hmm. And this is where we are basically introduced to everyone all of these people we know what ends up happening to. It's a way for so many people to get introduced, essentially, and it's all through Sansa's eyes. I'm sorry, Misha, I did interrupt you, but I didn't mean to.
Totally fine. That's totally fine. We're kind of muddling our way through this chapter. It was a very long and involved chapter, one of the longest so far.
It's hard for me to read it. It's hard for me to listen to it, like thinking about Sansa and Jane Poole and Septa Mordain. It's not an uplifting chapter, but I don't know. There's cool stuff in terms of the tournament, and we get to know the Hound a little better. We get to know Joffrey a little better. We're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Fran said in the chat that Sansa's seeing everything out remember, in the litter, particularly, there are very sheer gold curtains, and everything looks gold. He said that, and this is very true and very good catch, Fran. Foreshadowing of the fact that in the very near future, the Lannisters are pretty much going to own the world in which she lives in. Maybe not the world in general, but the world as she knows it is going to be Lannister controlled.
Yes, the golden of the Lannister will turn to rust in time. As we all know, as watchers of the show and readers of the books, the Lannisters, and the way she speaks of Jaime Lannister. But how would she feel if she knew what happened to Bran? How would she feel about, the fact that Jaime is laying with his sister, and has been doing it for years. Everything has the veneer of sophistication that she is attracted to, but she doesn't know these people.
Y'all know that country song? Everything that glitters is not gold. I can't help myself. Y'all go ahead. Y'all hear Russell in the background going, "No, you didn't go there. You didn't pull out some Dan Seals."
You did.
I did.
I was going to say, Elmar, you always pick out really interesting themes that I don't necessarily pick out. Do you have any, like, on her ride over, who she sees? Did anyone strike you as particularly memorable this time around?
This is what struck me as particularly is Malister, because in a few chapters before this, all we know about the person that paid Gendry's tuition fee or apprentice fee, they said dark purple cape with silver thread. They described Lord Malister as having on a dark indigo, which is purple, a bluey purple with silver thread. And I just, a few chapters ago, we were like, who wears that? Who wears that? Who is that? And, you know, a few people came up with Dondarrion or the Danes. But no, it actually described Malister's cape to a T. So that struck me out. It also strikes me out that they mention several times about the fact that, because remember, she met Waymar Royce up at that was really her first crush, which comes back again to theme when we talk about Sansa and the kind of guys that she likes. Her first crush became a Night's Watchman, but his father had on the bronze armor with the runes that were supposed to protect him, and they specifically say, obviously that didn't work because he didn't get protected from nothing at the tournament. But I think that bronze armor does mean something, definitely.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that certain metals, you know, certainly in witchcraft, if anyone studies witchcraft, that certain metals, you know, have powers imbued with them. And this is the kind of world where metals such as Valyrian steel and the black steel and certain woods and metals have power associated to them. So maybe, you know, the runes, you know, have a certain, you know, protection for that family, even though that family, the Royce family, does suffer many deaths. I mean, one, the Robar, I can't remember all their names offhand, but there are a few deaths coming to the family of the Robar, the Royce family.
The very first, what's it called before chapter 1? I can't think.
The prologue.
Prologue is a Royce, and one of Renly's guard is a Royce.
Right.
I don't understand that family, but I'm sure there's lots to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it reminds me of the Stanleys. Like during the War of the Roses, the Stanleys always, one brother would fight on one side and another brother would fight on another side. And then whichever side came out on top, the other brother would beg the favor he would beg from the new king or the king who, you know, whoever won the battle would be to spare his brother. And that's just the way they did it. And they say that's what turned the tide in the battle for Richard III and Henry Tudor, was the second Stanley brother held back till his brother told him, who happened to be married to Henry Tudor's mother, told him, hey, fight. And that's one thing we see with the Royces. We've got one Royce with Renly, who Caitlin meets when she goes to broker a deal between Robb and Renly's camp. He's one of the Royces is a Rainbow Guard. We've got one at the Night's Watch. But the Royces are spread out. And one of them, I believe, was with Stannis. But they were all kind of serving different purposes, and it's almost like their father split them up that way. But we don't get that detailed information. But Ricky Hunton says in the chat that first of all, that the Royces are his favorite house. Okay, awesome. I like them too. And that the runes on their armor are back from, if they get killed, they won't rise as whites. It prevents that. And that's as good as an explanation as I've ever heard. And he also says the Royces remember the old tongue. Okay.
Their house words are we remember.
Right. Okay.
And hey, Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Just working on this car real quick.
Okay.
But I figured I'd hop in and give my 2 cents when I could.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's what we thought. We thought we'd let one guy. We'll let one guy speak.
Now, Sarah, this is your story, and we kind of ran over you a little bit. You want to go ahead and finish with it, or carry on with the overview? We can help you here and there.
Yeah, we were at where Sansa is just kind of taking in the knights that she recognizes, and then it goes to the part where she doesn't recognize plenty of.
Before we go there, did y'all talk about the gold imagery? I saw the gold imagery through the shroud as being foreshadowing either her being married into the Lannister family or the Lannister takeover, basically.
Yeah, I read your comment out loud.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it. My bad.
I think it also just blurs her vision. Everything she's seeing is like rose-colored glasses. Like it's Lannister gold. It's
exactly,
magic.
And that's actually what I wanted to add. She actually states something. It says that it is better than songs, whatever she's seeing. And I was thinking about it that songs are usually more poetic, they're more romanticized, they're not reality. Songs are usually they put something extra, and she thinks of whatever she's seeing as better than songs, which is the complete opposite to what the reality is. I mean, songs are better than the reality, and she sees whatever she sees as better than songs. So completely at that point, thinking about beauty and what she thinks beauty is versus what the reality is. Yeah. So that's the beginning Sansa that we see, wanting everything to be beautiful.
Yeah, she wants everything to be beautiful, but just life, is just not beautiful. And I think Peter Baelish, tells her that later on in the story, that life is not a song. And that's actually a really wonderful and truthful statement that he told her. It's an excellent warning for her. I think it's going to happen, in maybe the next Sansa chapter or so on or something like that. But I think it was really very smart of him to, to tell her that life is not a song, sweetness. And
exactly.
It's not. It's certainly not. Oh, excuse me. I just wanted to say hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much, Ricky. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Thank you to Bubba and Arya and I can't pronounce your name. I'm gonna call you Sand. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Jules. Thank you. It's good to be here as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Sarah, go right ahead. I'll be quiet. Mute your microphone.
I'm unmuting my microphone. I'm trying to think of what I was going to say.
We were talking about the songs and then the life being a song, and
for me, this is like Sansa's lost her wolf. She is fighting with her sister. She sees someone killed in front of her. Like I can go through all of the people that are there. Let's see. Okay, Malister, Thorsamir. I can never say his name correctly. Jalabar, Zoe, Beric Dondarrion, who Jane Poole says she wants to marry, and it's just so, to me, so depressing. Because we just know how they end up. But anyway, it's very exciting. I think it was mean of them personally they see Jory representing the North, and they didn't like his armor. His armor wasn't flashy, but he held his own. Sansa notes that Jane often covers her eyes when a rider falls, but knows how a great lady must act, and draws the approval of Septa Mordane for her composure. So she's literally learning to turn off her face from her feelings. It started on the King's Road, and it's continuing. So
there's one thing that I wanted to say about Jory and the Northern Army. They didn't have the best armor, but they acquitted themselves very well. She makes a point of saying that they look, shabby in their dress and so forth, but yet they were doing very well in the tournament. And I think that she has not, learned to not judge the book by the cover. I mean, that's a very some music in the background.
There's music.
Music coming from?
That's my husband. I got headphones on and everything.
I
never plugged in or not. I just thought I just.
Hi, Russell.
I'm gonna go crawl up in my shell tonight. And,
he looking for
some. Hey, Russell.
Well, come say hey to everybody, Mick Jagger. Jeez. I keep trying to shush him, y'all. I went and got my headphones and doing everything I can.
Hey, everybody. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Hold on.
What was I saying about? Oh yeah, the Northern Nights.
Yes, the Northern Nights.
Because they weren't, dressed, more appropriately and more to the nines than the other nights. They acquitted themselves very well. So I think that's a good lesson there. For a good life lesson, don't judge the book by the cover. I mean, the cover is very beautiful, in the Lannister camp, but there's a lot of ugliness in it that she doesn't know anything about. There are a lot of knights that are mentioned here, and we're going to see these knights sprinkled, throughout the chapters and all the books later on, such as Aaron Sansagar, such as the Royce family, such as Beric and Thoros of Myr. We're going to see
Lothar Brune too.
Lothar Brune, absolutely. We're going to see a lot of knights here, and they're going to be sprinkled out, and it's going to be very interesting seeing to these knights.
Do you guys want to talk about Sir Loras Tyrell?
Yeah, Sir Loras, another knight. Sir Loras, she doesn't who he is. She's, just frail and bedazzled by the glare of it all. And but little does she know that he enjoys the company of men over women. So I mean, she's just bedazzled. She's in the shining moment, but that shine is gonna turn to rust. It's gonna. Yeah, go ahead.
I love that. I was gonna say, I love that he brought flowers and was giving white roses to all the maidens, but he gave the red rose to Sansa, and she was like clutching. It was like when a rock star, like, you catch their stick or whatever. Like, and that actually sounded way worse than I meant. The drumstick, like. There's it's a good tween moment. You know what I mean? I don't think tweens didn't exist in medieval times, I suspect. But she mentions that moment to him later, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, he has zero recollection of it at all. I mean, granted, he had been going through a lot with the Renly's death and everything, but he was just such a showman. And she just sort of, yeah,
he doesn't know what the hell she's even talking about. I mean, he looks at her and he's like, yeah, I guess, probably, thinking, yeah, you're pretty enough. I would have gave you something, you know what I mean? But he has no idea what the hell she's talking about. And I think that's also a learning curve for her right there, too. That a lot of people do something very showy, but it actually has no meaning behind it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with him also, he kind of, when he does that, he goes through the motions of, okay, I go there, I do my thing, and then I do my other thing in front of everybody. He doesn't even pay attention to it, so he's kind of playing a game over there. Like, this is the game that he plays. And for her, as a lady, they're teaching her all kinds of stuff, but she's still kept as a child, not being made aware of that, somebody who wears flowers and is all colorful may not be who she thinks he is. And so they're teaching her to be a lady, to recognize the world, but they don't teach her enough, and she has to find out on her own. All the mistakes that she makes is because she wasn't prepared for that. She was made to be a lady, not a warrior, I guess, at that time.
Yeah, and ladies, and I've said this before, but ladies, and even though that's a wonderful thing to be a lady, but it's just, she'll have to rely upon someone to save her if she gets into trouble. She hasn't quite learned to protect herself. A lady doesn't protect herself. The knights should protect the ladies. And if she is a true lady and she gets into trouble, she may become a damsel in distress. She's adopted that role of being a lady, but ladies don't protect themselves. Ladies have to smile and sing and plead, just like Cersei said. But it's a dangerous place. It's a dangerous world that she's living in, and she has very little armor to protect herself with. A lady's armor is her courtesy, but courtesy can only go so far. I mean, she doesn't know how to pick up a knife or wield a weapon like the Dornish women can. I mean, she just doesn't know how to do that. She has to rely upon her wit and her beauty and her kindness. But sometimes, especially in this world, you gotta pick up a weapon, and she doesn't have any, weapons. She has no weapons training. She's just going on through this as a defenseless lady, relying on her courtesy, and that's only gonna take her so far.
Exactly, and you mentioned protection. She's like a little bird, right? Singing pretty songs, saying pretty words, and birds are usually kept in a cage, right? So, like a pretty lady, she's taught how to say words, how to sing the song, and how to be safe in a cage, although her cage is not so safe. And then about that weapon, I don't know if it's just a show thing. Cersei told her that she has one weapon that she can use, and we all know where it is. Yeah, so I don't know if it's also mentioned in the book. I don't remember that part, but yeah.
She'll get there. Yeah. House Sanchez. Sanchez here. Yeah. Welcome, House Sanchez. AB's Corner. Thank you so much for joining us.
Girl, that's Bran and Aggie's new channel. They've been in here.
Let's maybe we should go on a little bit with the story.
Sure. So obviously I have to talk about Loras, but I think if we're going to talk about creepy predators and Sansa maybe being in danger, we enter Lord Baelish.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, and like she's uncomfortable. She's seeing all this nonsense going around, and then him showing up makes her uncomfortable. And she assesses him so well. She says he moves with the grace and confidence of a lord, but she didn't know him, so she is just very cleverly sort of asks who he is. And Septa Mordane is like, "Oh, this is from the small council," and so often she's looking to Septa Mordane and on how to be a lady, but. Was that like such a good choice? Does that work? Does that work in King's Landing?
I think.
Does Myrcella have a Septa telling her what to do?
Well, I think they do. I think the Septa just comes in with a highborn family. It's just a part of it.
Well, she had a lot of fun at that party. What's his Moon Boy?
Moon Boy, yeah.
We meet Moon Boy.
Moon Boy got lit.
Yeah, well, and she was like laughing just a little too hard at the jokes about the High Septon, and Moon Boy just sort of reminded me of I'm sorry, I'm so bad at this. The mushroom, the dwarf they called mushroom. You know what I'm talking about? There's like
they're both fools.
Yeah, but one of them is like serves as a historian for the
his accounts weren't always trusted. He was a fool. He was the jester, but he did do a life story, and he was close to the Targaryens. That's why he was important.
It's like supposedly Moon Boy is simple, but like his jokes are so on point that
Sansa makes a point of saying that he's so witty that you wonder who is the simpleton when you hear him tell his jokes.
And that who better to write history,
I mean, I think it's very funny that she gets a good bead on Peter Baelish very good, she gets a good bead on him, a good read on him in the beginning, and she also gets a good read on Moon Boy. Isn't that strange that she would figure out these two people, very quickly, but she can't figure out anything else. And I mean, it's just very strange. I mean, she's not a fool. She's not a foolish person. And if she would, just take the time and look past, the exterior, she could really, be a perceptive young woman. If
she's been.
She's Brand. Go ahead. Sorry.
She's been told to listen to the king and queen all these years. I mean, she's been basically trained to believe it. So why all of a sudden one little communication or whatever can change all that? It's going to take her time to learn to get to that point. You can't just expect one misconception to change her whole views immediately.
She's still upset about the altercation where, she's like so mad at her sister. Joffrey's the one who did a bad
she's still
thing.
mad at her sister.
She's mad at her sister, and then she's like, well, "I'm not mad at Joffrey. I'm mad at the queen for killing Lady. Like the reason Lady's dead." It's her convincing herself that this is a good thing,
excuse me. I do like the fact that she at first started to blame Joffrey because he was very much the beginning of that entire situation.
This fucking thing's
But
getting
then,
in my way.
she changes her opinion, and she actually had the right opinion all along. She was right to, distrust Joffrey and not like him and hold him accountable because he was accountable for the entire situation. But, in time, I guess she changes her opinion. But she doesn't know that she has the right opinion all along.
14.
Bram, will you mute, babe? Will you mute?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sarah, you want to go ahead, or
yeah,
you want to start?
I was like, let me just say what Peter says to her. All right, so she's mesmerized by her flower. She's happy about her flower until she notices Lord Peter Baelish above her. She tells Sansa that she has her mother's hair, touches her cheek, and leaves. The king announces that the last 3 jousts will wait till the next day. Yeah, doesn't he say? He said, "Your mom was my king, a queen of love and beauty once," and touches her. I don't know. It was weird. And so now we're at the feast with Prince Joffrey, and he hasn't spoken to her, and she hasn't dared speak to him since the fight on the King's Road. Again, she's rationalizing. She's just convincing herself that it's hard for me. I don't know. That kind of stuff is hard to read, hard to read because I just know how badly things are going to go. But at that same time, her ability to sort of,
you guys know what that reminds me of?
What?
Like, I'm married now, but back in the day when you were single and you went out with a guy and you really liked him and you're like, yeah, I want him to ask me out, whatever. Then he does, and you go on your date or whatever, and he says something really stupid, and then he can, and the night, but you're trying to resign yourself that he's not as bad as he is till finally you just have to say, yeah, this dude, it's not what I thought I was. And I think that's where Sansa's at, kind of. She's, she at first she thinks all her dreams are coming true, everything she's ever hoped for, and now as things are starting to crumble, she hasn't accepted that yet.
And he's so inconsistent too. Like, he gives her just enough to keep her
hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's magic, and they're feeding each other.
Mm-hmm. You can tell that it was an act.
And as soon as he sees his dad, excuse my language, as soon as he sees his dad starting to act like a drunk asshole, he turns around and he's like, "So, baby, you wanna escort back? Dog will take you." Like, just seeing it, and he knew what he was doing. I think he just was embarrassed, and he wanted to pick on somebody, and he deflated her on purpose.
Yeah, it was all an act, and we can see that it was an act, but she can't. But I mean, that whole feeding and them at the feast together, and
meanwhile, his hand his hands still hurt him. She said she could tell by the way he was moving that his hands still hurt him. But he didn't complain about it. So, you know, his mom was like, you better perform, act like you, like it's just the same way people are telling Ramsay that Jane better stop crying all the time, or excuse me, Arya Stark better stop crying. Like,
I mean, it's all just an act, and
yes.
we are not fooled by it, and I certainly was not fooled by the act when I read it for the first time. But she, you know, being young, and you know, how old is she here? Like 11 or 12 years
12.
old, I think.
I
So
think
she
12.
hasn't, you know, she's a girl, and she hasn't grown up just yet. I also wanted to talk about the food at the feast. I thought the food, you know, was really a foreshadowing, you know, in the certain foods. You know, they talk about the pigeon pie, and they talk about the lemon cake, and the pigeon pie is very much a part of Joffrey's downfall. You know, Joffrey's wedding to Marjorie, and that whole affair. And the lemon cake is also a part of the Winds of Winter in the Elaine chapter. In the Elaine chapter, she talks about a 12-foot high lemon cake just for her. And so, I mean, the food at that feast will appear again in other feasts, you know, throughout the books. So that was certainly a foreshadowing.
I have a question. I can't remember this specifically. I'm wondering if you guys can. It said something about how they cook trout, and she showed him, or he showed her how to eat the trout. You like apparently like break these clay trays, and then they were feeding each other the fish. And I don't know, the idea of this, just the trout and her mom's family sigil, and like, are you telling me this girl doesn't really know how to eat fish? He had to show her how to eat fish. Do they eat fish differently in the South?
When with that line that you mentioned, I wrote something down, and it kind of it got me thinking, like everything else here. It says, her prince helped her crack open the hard case to expose the flaky white flesh within. So it got me thinking about, he's gonna basically crack her. He's gonna break her. She's gonna be completely she doesn't even have a shell yet, but whatever shell she has, the shell of niceness and being ladylike, he's gonna crack it basically, and he's gonna expose her vulnerable side. But that way, by cracking her and making her vulnerable, that's gonna make her stronger later. But that kind of that it was him who broke her, but because she's broken, she can mend herself. And usually when you mend something, the stitches are stronger than anything else. So that was a nice thing to read too.
And it also kind of foreshadowed, you know, adding on to that, it kind of foreshadowing, you know, in the Clash of Kings, when everything has fallen, you know, him dragging her in front of him and tearing off her clothes in court, exposing her flesh.
Her pale flesh,
flesh. And you know, it's just it's very sad, but I hope that she is taking lesson, and I think she did take lesson, you know, as best as she could, you know, from those experiences in King's Landing. Sometimes you gotta get hurt and gotta get knocked down and get back up. So, and that's pretty much her story. You know, she's got to get knocked down. She's up there right now, but it's falling. You know, the shell is being ripped away, the veneer is being ripped away, and she's trying her best to adapt to it as best she can. And I think she adapted pretty well throughout this chapter. You know, it started out good, but it got worse. And I think she adapted and handled herself as best as she could, though.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Ricky in the chat, Ricky Hunt said, well, who was the reason that Robert was screaming and yelling about wanting to be in the melee? Well, it was Cersei, and there was a big scene there. What happens after that is, Septim Ordain's asleep at the table. So Jaime gets knocked. This is what I wanted to say. I forgot about this happening. All right, so No, you do not tell me what to do, woman. I am king here. Do you understand? I rule, and if I say that I will fight tomorrow, I will fight. Everyone stares, but no one interferes. I'm reading this from Westeros.org, by the way. Everyone stares, but no one interferes, and the queen storms off in silence. When Jaime comes to him, the king pushes him away hard, causing Jaime to fall. The king boasts that he can still knock Jaime in the dirt. He also calls him Kingslayer. He's like, I can still knock your ass down, Kingslayer. Like, just, I don't know, that's not really a way you talk to your brother-in-law / protector, even if there's a lot going on with that dynamic, obviously, we all know.
Excuse me, I have a little comment on that, and I think that is a good thing to look at. I mean, look at how he is being raised. Look at how Joffrey's being raised, and look at how his father speaks to his mother. And that should have, raised the red flag right there. I mean, this is what Joffrey knows of marriage. This is what he knows of love and commitment and what marriage is supposed to be. I mean, she could easily be Cersei sitting there silent, as her husband is drunk and rowdy and acting sloppy and, untoward. I mean, this is how she could be, but she doesn't see the pattern there. She herself is sitting there silently, and she's going to be sitting there silently later on as Joffrey goes off on his tirade later on. And I mean, it's a shame that she couldn't see the signs. There are so many signs and so many clues in this story, and they're all there. And it's a shame that we couldn't really see them all, on our first reading. But the signs were definitely there, certainly there.
I have a question for the chat. Bubba Husky, what does Sandra needs to trub hump mean?
Needs to what? Let me see.
Sandra needs to tub hump.
Tub hump. Okay.
I know what the kids are doing these days. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what it means either. But if
Elamar, what do you got?
Yeah, if anyone knows the answer, just put it in the chat. Tub thumping is drinking.
Actually, ask my teenager.
Yeah, tub thumping means to drink and get drunk. That's what tub thumping means. If anybody remembers that old song.
Oh, that song. Yes, that was the name of that song, wasn't it?
But I get up again. I mean, yeah, that's all about drinking. It's a drinking song. That's what tub thumping means.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Sarah, I wanted to add to when you mentioned, because before I forget, Jaime and Brienne, right? Or not Brienne, Jaime and Robert. It reminded me about, because he fell in the mud, right? For trying to help somebody. He was trying to help Robert, and that got him, in the mud. It didn't work. The good deed didn't work. So in a way, kind of later on with Brienne, he is also in the mud, trying to help her. He ends up in the mud. So like everything here, almost every sentence is kind of like a foreshadowing for something else to happen later on. I just wanted to add that about Jaime being in the mud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, Jaime being in the mud. Yeah, that's a good foreshadowing of what's going to happen to him later on. He's going to be in the mud as well. That's very much stated in the show and seen, in the books. It's very much there. So he's going to hit some hard times as well.
And then Misha, for you, when you mentioned for that Sansa, I think you were the one who mentioned Sansa kind of going through different things here. One of the things I think we had a chat with Jen before this, when Sansa is seeing that death right in front of her, like 10 feet away from her, and she doesn't cry. There are no tears. And then she says, "Oh, if it would have been," she lists Jory and then somebody else, I forgot, and her father, then that would be different. So in a way, she thinks she has no more tears to cry, and then she's proven wrong. I mean, she has those tears.
She also,
yeah.
Well, I mean, she didn't know the man. I can understand her being horrified by what she saw, but tears, she didn't really know the man.
Well, she's not supposed to cry. She's made of sterner stuff than Jane Poole. So she actually, I think when you hear her inner dialogue, at least to me, maybe it's because I listened to it too many times today, but she's like, no one's going to sing songs about him. It's going to be so sad. Oh, we're both talking at the same time. I wonder who's coming through.
You were Sarah.
Oh, okay. I think I'm watching it on a delay, so I apologize. I got distracted and forgot what I was talking about.
Oh, we were talking about her tears and her being a lady, being composed and knew better how to. I mean, she knew better as a lady how to react.
And so she starts thinking about the songs and how no one's going to sing songs of that kid. She doesn't even remember his name and he's dead. And then later, Eddard is like, we're going to send his body home and they're going to tell his mother he died. And then for the hands Tourney. They both feel sad about just an unnecessary death. But she's sort of putting that out of her mind. She can't cry like Jane Poole might, but she realizes upon thinking about it further that it's actually really sad.
Jane Poole does, and as a matter of fact, remember Septimore Dane, she gets so worked up. Septimore Dane has to escort her back to the castle.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Sansa is able to, and it also, I think, mentions that Sansa, even though it's horrible and she admits it's horrible, she cannot look away because she's never seen anybody die before.
So what do you think about when she says, or when it said about her that it said that with her hands on her lap, watching with strange fascination? So it's not even like horror of, oh my gosh, somebody died in front of me. It's like, oh, she's kind of fascinated. That kind of reminded me about her later on, being just kind of cool and chill, looking at how Ramsay was basically dinner with his dogs, and she was just kind of looking at him.
Well, I mean, forgive me, LMR, but I don't think it's quite that fair to compare those two.
Oh, true.
Because it's don't even talk to me about the show, Sansa.
I think what it is I think that is exactly, sometimes things are just what they say they are. And I think this was probably a good example of that. Just like us as people, like, you ride by something, you see where a car has been hit by a train and it's terrible, but you cannot look away because it's not something you see every day. Yeah. And then it goes on to specifically say this is the first time she has ever seen anybody die. Remember, because she didn't get to go to the executions, and it wasn't that much. And I think it's also a precursor. She's fixing to see a lot of people die, and she's very kind of immovable. She's almost like an immovable feast in the scenes of the tourney and the terrible things that happen. But then and she thinks to herself, well, it would have been different if it had been Jory or if it had been somebody she known. Well, very shortly from now, she's fixing to experience that with her own father, Septimore Dane. And I think that's just showing maybe also another way to show Sansa's not a psycho, but it is easy to be pretty far removed from the death of somebody that you don't particularly know.
Does she see Jory's head? Like, I can't remember. A lot of those scenes are just sort of like torture porn. Like, I can only imagine what it would be like to see the head. Because she's like,
she does see them.
He doesn't have pretty armor. And then, like, I would do anything to go back to when I had Jory and his dented armor. And
so I think the only reason why the Ned's head was more preserved is because they executed him after. I mean, he was in the cell for whatever number of days, weeks, or not days, weeks, or I don't know, months. So other heads were kind of rotting, like Septa's head was kind of, her jaw was falling off and whatnot. But I wanted to add, like, to for Sansa, that the way she reacts, and a lot of people may not see her as strong, but just looking at how she's being, she's already strong. I mean, she doesn't freak out when people die. She doesn't panic. She keeps her composure. She remembers how to be ladylike. A lot of ladies, I guess, would freak out. They would act like Jane.
I have a prediction here in a little bit when about the whole Giants Lance and stuff. So when y'all get to it and stuff, let me know.
Okay.
Missed my road.
Okay, we've broke this down into sections, beginning, middle, and end. We're getting to the middle, I think.
I was going to say, well, we could keep talking about Sansa and all the things that happen at the feast, but I think her going back with the Hound gets its own discussion. And then you want to talk about the Lance before we talk about the Hound?
Bran.
Go
ahead for 1 second. Let me get parked here. I'm test driving this car.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, be safe. So, I think I mentioned it earlier. Joffrey very sort of cruelly tricks Sansa. Do you want protection home? Yes, I'd love protection home. And then he calls, Dog over. And I mean, let's see. He's sort of the first person. I mean, he's cruel, but he's the first person to tell her what. He's like, oh, you. Let's see. Let me.
Yeah, I mean, it is a reason behind the way he acts, and he has, it's justified in the way that he acts.
And so, just talking about Sansa not reacting to the horrors in front of her, she looks at the Hound. Half of his face is completely burned off, and she says, "A true lady wouldn't notice. A true lady wouldn't notice." And so she's terrified. She realizes that her septa is snoring. It's dark. Everything's kind of shutting down. It's like, like when the concert's over and you're just kind of like, I just need to get back to my car.
Reiterate, we know from the first chapter, Sansa chapter, when Lady is killed, Joffrey says something to her like, "Is the Hound makes you nervous?" So he knew. He did know. He wasn't just like, he didn't feel like doing it. Just like what you said, he knew that was he played a little trick on her. And you're right. It's like whenever he can't handle something, he takes out his frustrations in cruelty.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, it didn't work this time because she was a little afraid of him in the beginning, but then her heart went out to him. And
it turned in her favor. She makes a friend here.
Yeah. She does. And to say that that's not a survival skill, I feel like is unfair to her, because not many people, she said all of a sudden she was afraid, but not afraid for herself. She was afraid for him because he just broke down, was so emotional. Then of course he tells her if she tells anyone that he'll kill her. So, I mean, that's sort of not a great way to end the evening. But
let's also remember, though, which I think a lot of people forget, Sansa grew up with 4 brothers. So she knows, how guys are, and that, she's probably seen her younger brothers at the very least try not to cry when they wanted to cry or whatever. And that's where I think Sansa is a character that actually does have a lot of empathy before anything bad actually even has to happen to her. And I will give her that. Whereas Jaime has to get his hand cut off. A lot of people have to have really bad. Here, Sansa is still in a pretty good position, but she is still, she's a little bit judgmental, but you can almost say that that's the way she was raised. But you see an empathy with Sansa that really comes out. And I think we see that in all great rulers. All great rulers have an empathy and can talk to anybody, from the most common person to the most highborn person. And I think in this chapter, at the end of this chapter, we see that come out in Sansa.
Oh, yeah, we certainly see it in this chapter, and we see it in the Clash of Kings. I remember, in the beginning, she wouldn't even talk to the people of the lower class. But when the Battle of Blackwater came, she went to the Sept and she was singing with the people, and
she was leading.
Yeah, she's not as superficial. The superficiality kind of wanes in her. She sees that the upper crust ain't really all that, so she kind of looks to the lower, people. You know, she looks to the lower people with Sir Dantos, the poor drunk fool, and she sees Tyrion and see how he treats her, and then she goes when it's time for the war and the Battle of Blackwater. She's in the sept and she's singing with the common people. She spends more time with the commoners and is happier with the commoners and safer with the commoners than she is with the upper crust.
So what I remember from that scene specifically is that they were looking to Cersei for leadership, but Cersei decided that she needed to run off and go do something else. And so it just sort of fell to Sansa to give an update. She was the one who was like, get Lancel to a maester now. And she said, the king is unharmed and blah, blah, blah. And then she's thinking she didn't actually know that to be true, but it was important that the people were calm, or were
She's
comforted.
A leader.
Yeah.
And Serenity Elizabeth, Jules Elizabeth in the chat says, Sandor finally tells someone what really happens to him. I don't know, lost my spot. Sorry. Sandor finally tells someone what really happens to his face. In his drunken state, he wants Sansa to see for real and stop lying to herself to realize the ugly truth of the world. And Sansa actually acquits herself rather well in this chapter. She didn't freeze up. She got quiet. She was timid. She was scared. But she still is able to utter, he was no true knight. And even the Hound agrees with her and gives her due. And she really makes probably one of the most important friendships of her life here. And also Jules Elizabeth, before you take back over, Sarah, Jules Elizabeth says, when she touches him and reassures him, hey, it wasn't your fault. Your brother was awful and wrong. So, yeah, she makes a friend here. I would have to say, that really helps her. We see him going to help her many times to cover for her and help her throughout her trials and tribulations in King's Landing.
Yeah, he wanted, her to see him, beyond the, exterior and the injury that he suffered. That's the only reason why I could think that he would tell her such a private, and such a gruesome story, because he wanted her to see beyond, what
I think he was drunk and just couldn't believe how incredibly naive she was, like laughing. Your septa taught you well. Some septa taught you very well. And she's like, you're being unkind. And then I think that's when he like grabs her and puts her face. He grabs her and puts her face near his face, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wants to say some things, but he just doesn't know how to express it, put it like that,
So do you guys want to hear the story of how he lost his face, or do we all know that?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm not reading it from a primary source. Again, this is from Westeros.org, but okay, so the Hound then forces Sansa to look at his burned face. When she starts to cry, the Hound tells her how his brother Gregor burned his face when he was 6 for stealing a toy knight. I'm no knight. Like, he's very anti-knight. The toy had been nothing to Gregor, who was already a 6-foot tall squire. So I guess this was his, I think, is he 5 years older or something? I don't know. He's older, bigger. He doesn't play with toys anymore.
The Hound was 6. He was 11, I believe.
So he had, he finds that Sandor, my heart breaks for him, even though he's not super nice. He was like, it wasn't even fun playing with the knight because I was just so scared he was going to catch me, and he caught me, and he put my face on a brazier. And then everyone lied about it and said that my sheets caught fire. People asked if, it was dragon's breath. And he did something about the maester gave him ointment, and then 4 years later they had anointed Gregor with the 7 oils, and after he said his vows, he was called Sir Gregor. And it was actually, I believe it was Rhaegar who did that. And then he's talking, because I think how they got to talking about this too is Gregor is saying that don't think that Sir Hugh dying was just some random accident.
Yeah.
The poor kid did not have any business being there. Nobody fastened his neck thing properly. I never say it. Gorget. Yeah. Okay.
And Rhaegar does knight him, which I noted of. I don't think we hear of anyone else throughout the story that Rhaegar personally knighted. And then to know that the Mountain was, then later raped his wife, killed his children, and he was knighted by his own prince. Yeah.
It's really
kind of sick.
That the evil people are being rewarded.
Yes, it's extra sick.
It's very sick and sad too. Him being rewarded, him not facing any consequences for having tried to burn your brother alive. I mean, and now he's knight. Yeah. I mean, that's really such a mockery because he's a knight of the King's Guard, which is supposed to be, and these knights are supposed to be the best of the best. And here this guy is. I mean, this evil, horrible person. We're gonna see how evil he is, in those Arya chapters.
So, Misha, I don't think Sir Gregor was a part of the King's Guard. I think that was
No, he wasn't.
Cersei got mad, Tywin got mad when Cersei Joffrey put Sandor as in the King's Guard, and he's like, no, you don't give them white cloaks. You feed your dogs behind the building where no one can see them.
He wasn't King's Guard until Cersei or Sir Robert Strong.
Yeah, well, that's way later. But
you're talking about when she made the Hound a white cloak. What Tywin is really mad about is the fact that she releases Barristan Selmy, whose reputation alone makes the King's Guard more than what it is, and lends credence actually to their rule, because. So that's what Tywin is so mad about, and he's absolutely right. That was so stupid.
One thing, though, I don't think...
He goes over and finds Daenerys.
Misha, I'm sorry I interrupted you with that, saying Sir Gregor wasn't in the King's Guard, but he eventually will be, just his undead body, right?
I'm a little rusty. It's been a while since I boned up on the story, so I'm a little rusty, but that's okay. I don't mind.
He's definitely Tywin's monster who does horrible things.
But maybe I'm wrong.
Just get up and go. Yes. Have 300,000 miles. One thing I noticed. One thing. I'm trying to explain something. I've been trying for a minute now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead then.
One thing that I noticed, that everybody seems to think that Gregor had somebody. Well, obviously he done it on purpose, but everybody wants to attribute it to like Baelish or something. I think it was just him being him, wanting to kill somebody, and because everybody else involved was a Sir or somebody of importance, he wasn't able to. But then he got set up against Sir Hugh, who is just an up-jump squire. He was able to kill him. And I don't think Baelish, I don't think Varys or anybody was involved other than Gregor wanting to kill somebody.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
there's just no reason he's not in Baelish's pocket, And I don't think he's one to be
just a perfect storm. I think it was just a perfect storm. That all of that Sir Hugh got killed and everything. Like Sandor says, Gregor just took advantage of the situation. He didn't have a squire. He didn't really have the right equipment, and he stopped. But that's what he's trying to tell her. He's like, don't think for a minute that was an accident. This is the way people are. This is the way things are. You think these knights are so great and so wonderful, and they're not. They're not. And then she acknowledges that.
I just don't think it was more than that. I don't think Baelish or the Lannisters or anybody's behind it other than Gregor just wanting to be a psychopath.
I think he just likes to kill.
Well, I fully agree with you on that, but there is a question around Sir Hugh. He obviously doesn't have enough money to afford a squire. How could he afford an expensive, overpriced gorget and a whole nice uniform? How could he afford that if he doesn't even have the money to pay a squire? So, I mean...
Wasn't that some kind of cover-up?
Yeah, LMR?
Yeah, Bran thinks that it was just Gregor being Gregor, and I can agree with that.
I agree as far as the death, but I think the fact that all of a sudden... that he even found himself in that position. Some things are just good fortuna. And I think that's one of them. But there are suspicious circumstances surrounding Sir Hugh.
Oh yeah. And we don't even know the answer to it.
Did you have something about that, Elamar, about Sir Hugh particularly? You sounded like you did.
Yeah, I from all the little clues that we are given, but again, not everything has a payoff at the end. But again, him not having proper, not being able to afford what he was wearing, not being properly fitted for that. That kind of is. Why would he say that? Like, what's the point of that? He doesn't put anything in the book that should not be in the book. So, to me, it means something. We may not know what it means, but we can guess, like we're guessing right now. And
okay, here's my prediction. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm just saying mountain being a mountain, that's one thing. And whoever put them against, they counted on mountain being mountain, basically.
Well, one thing I noticed through this whole chapter is the veil imagery. You got the House Royce, you got the Giant's Lance, you got all this stuff from the veil. And it dawned on me that the Giant's Lance is what rode up and killed Sir Hugh. So I think what we're going to see at some point is the giant in the veil, which is going to be Baelish because he's the Titan of Bravos. His family's the Titan. I think we're going to see him, his weapon, who is going to be Lynn Corbray, is going to kill the up-jump start squire, who's going to be Harry the Heir. And Sansa's going to watch on just like she did there, calm, collected, and
yeah, that's a really good point. I can kind of see something like that happening. I really can, because these tournaments don't do anything but breed a whole bunch of mess.
And I want to also point out, anybody who has not seen it, look for Misha Houston and the Danger of Sansa and the Danger of Winds. Misha has a whole series on that entire chapter that is broken down brilliantly. And she needs to put a link to that in this video. All right, that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you so much. Doing that section, and I'm really not quite done with it yet, because I found a few more points in that chapter, and I will be doing one more video. It's going to be called Sansa and the Dangers of Winds, the Wild Card series. And it's just going to be a group of people that I have found, in that chapter, a few families, a few people, and I'm just going to be pointing out a few points here and there. It's not going to be a big involved thing. It's not going to be a big involved thing as it was. But yeah, if you're interested, everyone, please check out my channel, Misha Houston, and check out Sansa and the Dangers of Wind series. It's actually something I'm very proud of. I wrote it some years, like a year or two ago, but I had no way of broadcasting it on YouTube. I didn't have the equipment, but I had these theories, and I just wrote it all down on a piece of paper, and then I ran up on that piece of paper, and I decided to make a video of it.
And I just want to let everybody know just a little bit of history behind the channel. That is where I first saw Misha and was like, man, I'm going to get in touch with this lady and see if she'll do a book club with me. And the rest is history, as they say.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. No need. I don't need a whole bunch of praise, but thank you all the same. I do appreciate it.
We're just so happy you're back. We're just so happy you're back. We can't give you, all the compliments. Misha gets all the compliments.
Oh, no need for all that.
It's like a virtual hug right now.
Yeah, virtual hug.
I think we lost Bran. I don't know what happened to Bran.
Yeah,
Bran, if you can, just come and call us back.
And come back, and we will all stop talking. For I don't know how to get him back in, but I have I have something that I wrote down we haven't gotten to yet. So who wants to?
Right ahead and carry on with the story.
Oh, Elamar, you have a Bridge Force says hello to you. He just wants to say hey to Elamar. Hi, Elamar. Unmute yourself.
Oh my gosh, I was just reading my notes. So really, he's in the chat. Well, hi, Cap.
Yeah,
oh my
he's
gosh.
saying hey.
So you're here, and I said, oh my gosh. Yeah, you got here. Good. Stay. There are no spoilers, so stay if you have time.
Oh, there's no spoilers? I'm worse with that.
No, I don't think we have any spoilers here. We're just
We don't
going
have
by
any
the book.
spoilers in book club, but let me tell you what. On review, Misha unashamedly will watch a leaked episode. Yes, she will.
No doubt about it.
Oh, that kind of spoiler. I thought it was...
Sarah, I love you. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I know. Thank you.
I love you. Okay, yeah.
No, well, I don't know, but I thank you. I love you too. No, I thought you guys were talking about spoilers. Like, we can't talk about Sir Gregor Clegane in A Dance with Dragons because that's a spoiler. That's not the spoiler you're talking about.
No.
Oh yeah, no, we're
no show spoilers. We're
fine here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to what is it called? Dating yourself. Like I'm gonna reveal. This is gonna be revealing of my age, which isn't a secret anyway. But have you guys all seen The Breakfast Club?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah. All right. So my parents were crazy strict about like what we watched, but for some reason, whenever we went to this one family member's house, every Thanksgiving they let us watch A Breakfast Club. Okay, the Breakfast Club. So this is like, it's like seared into my memory, whether I like it or not. And there's this scene where Judd Nelson is like, look at this scar. How do you think I got this scar? This is what happens in my house if you you spill paint in the garage. Somebody put a cigar out on his arm, and he's yelling at Molly Ringwald, who's the princess with red hair. And I was just like, wow, this is like a super dramatic medieval grotesque version of a John Hughes movie. Just that one moment. Thoughts on that? Anyone?
I'm sorry, I wasn't quite listening, but if anyone else has, I'm trying to do different things here, but it's okay. Go ahead.
I actually have not seen it, so I cannot add anything to that. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go on Bran detail. I'm gonna see if I can get Bran in here.
Right. I mean, nobody did anything, Bran. It just, if there's too many people in the hangout, sometimes it'll kick people out, which is what Aggie experienced last week.
Oh, yeah.
It took a while to get in here.
I think he needs the link to get back in, but
I've sent him another invitation.
Yeah.
Ricky. Oh, what's message retracted mean? It must be good.
It's not good, actually.
Well, let me go ahead and try.
He was yelling at Emilio Estevez.
Yeah, let me try to go ahead and carry on a little bit with the story. There really wasn't much that kind of stood out to me. Everything was kind of straightforward. But there were, as I said before, there was some foreshadowing, a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of little pieces of the puzzle. And it's a shame that we couldn't all see them in the beginning. The pigeon pie, the lemon cake, and the significance of that. And as I said before, you know, I do believe that fruit and vegetables have a certain meaning attached to them. Like lemons it means an unresolved conflict, and grapes and pomegranates are the fruit of passion. The pear is the fruit of marriage and commitment. Mint, which is the sense that Sansa smelled on Baelish means money and protection. So little things like that stood out to me. Bran, I'm sorry if you were put out of here. No one put you out. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, I don't even know how to do that.
Just click on the invitation if you get it. Now, but as I said before, you know, fruits and vegetables and spices do have a significance in the story. As I said before, grapes and pomegranates, the fruit of passion. Orange is the fruit of love. So certainly look out for fruits and spices and vegetables and what they mean in the story.
Yeah, it was interesting speaking about food. Again, I take a lot of notes. My bad or good habit, I don't know. It said when Joffrey and Sansa were at the table, it says here, the Prince Joffrey sat down and felt, and she felt her throat tighten. So I'm thinking, the minute I heard Joffrey and then throat and tighten, I'm thinking, oh boy, somebody's throat is going to tighten at some point, like we know later on. So again, he puts those little clues perfectly. I don't know how the man does it, knowing what word to put in what sentence, and then later on make it reality.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's certainly going to be some tightening of throats. A lot of people are going to lose their heads. It's just, this is a bloody story. And
I think
it's rearing up. It's rearing up, no doubt about it.
To speak of, okay, so there was tightening of throat. There was also Cersei as pale as ice or milk or snow or something. No, I mean, there's only, bloodless. Now, I mean, like, who doesn't look like that when they're pissed? But those words are picked for reasons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Certainly, no doubt about it. This is just, you know, it's just rearing up. You can feel the tension starting to build. These are the beginning chapters of the building of the tension. Things are rearing up. Things are starting to get bloody now. Blood has been shed now, and blood is was shed, I think, in the Catelyn chapter, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. Was the Catelyn chapter the same chapter when Bran was attacked?
I'm not sure.
I do think Bran is attacked in Kat's chapter because she catches the knife. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, things are starting to get bloody. Things are starting to go crazy. I mean, things are it's starting up now. It's starting up, and this is going to be a bloody tale. So much is happening here. So much is going on. Now, I think I'm just going to guess that we're kind of finished with the chapter, and maybe we can go a little bit into the television show and the tournament there.
Hey, everybody, do something for me real quick.
Yeah.
Everybody look over to the screen right over here.
Mm-hmm.
Where it shows what I do. That's the first one I sent when he joined. The second one you guys see that I resent it. And then I just sent another one. I can't send a link because I have a different screen than what you guys have because I started the chat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you can send an invite.
I sent an invite. I did. Don't you see it over here on the side?
No.
It says Bran left the group chat.
Yeah, it says that here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does say that you left, Bran.
Left. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a
Here, I'll send you another invitation right now. And this is the fourth one. Does everybody see where it says invitation posted? Up in blue?
I don't see that here, but my screen.
Well, maybe only I get that on my end, but
yeah,
I don't know what all these screen shares are about. I'm getting. I haven't done anything.
Well, how did he join it? In the middle.
An invitation.
Yeah.
Misha had, Misha had suggested we talk about the show. I'll take a look at the chat, but does anything stick out is different from the show versus the book?
Well, I mean, it is different because it was Peter Baelish who told the story.
Right, yeah.
And there was a little bit more, a few more questions asked about Sir Hugh's death. Everyone kind of took it at face value in the book, at least for now. But there was, questions asked about his death. And
does Jane go to the the Hans Tourney in the show?
No, there is no Jane Poole, in the show. They completely, phased her out, which is a shame, and they pretty much dumped her storyline on Sansa.
I feel like she was in the Sewing Circle, but I gotta rewatch those early seasons. Now that we're rereading the book, I feel like what else is there to do besides watch season 1 to go along with it?
The Tourney is pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. I am not. It's pretty.
I feel like they
met Baelish.
And Sandor kills his horse or something, right?
Well, in the
not Sandor.
No,
Gregor
kills his. Does he kill his horse in the
Not in that chapter. In that Eddard chapter afterwards.
Okay, so maybe they're
not quite done just yet.
Maybe they combine them.
Yeah, they combine the whole thing, in the show. But the Tourney is really not done yet. I think, is there an Eddard chapter next? Because it should be in the Eddard chapter.
There's one coming up, and I think it's Jory told Ned that Sansa had gotten a rose, and like Sansa was wearing the rose in her hair or something. She was still excited about it.
Yeah, at the 29th chapter, which is where we are, it's the Sansa chapter, but the 30th chapter is Eddard. So the Tourney is not quite done yet. We haven't, quite arrived at that yet. But the Eddard chapter begins with them standing over, Sir Hugh's body and talking about it. And he sees the tournament for what it is. It's just a bland old affair that starts a whole bunch of mess, and so he sees the expense of it. He sees that these tournaments are nothing but trouble. They bring a lot of extra people in, and he sees what the tournament truly is. He sees for what it is, and Sansa does not until later on. So we haven't quite gotten to that part yet. They kind of merged it together on the show. So we haven't quite gotten there yet in the story. I want to send an apology to Bran openly in front of everyone. We did not put you out. That's not what happened here, and I apologize for that as well. As for the show, do you have any points on the show? Anyone on the panel?
I noticed that while reading the books, they seem kind of dark. I don't know, like I always get, whenever I read something, I have this image. Obviously, everybody has an image, but I also see either lighter or darker scenes. And that seemed, anything that I read, even though they were describing, how beautiful it was, this and that, I saw darkness over there. I don't know why. To me, it looked like it was happening at night, and I know it wasn't, but that's kind of the weird difference that I saw in the show. It was daylight, it was bright, it was airy, and that in the book to me looked darker. I didn't see bright colors.
So they have to film it, so it has to be like for them to film it, right? Like sometimes, but yeah, I think it did get dark quickly, and that was kind of one of the things I think that scared her, if memory serves.
Yeah. As far as the show goes, and I agree with you, LMR. There is so many. These people, in regards to the show, are whitewashed. a lot of people have a darker edge in the book than they are in the show. So, I mean, for anyone who only watches the show, I kind of feel bad for you because you're missing so much. There's a lot of darkness. Tyrion is a very dark character in the book, and I feel kind of bad for the people who are only watching the show because you're missing so much. You really got to read these books.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage is amazing, but book Tyrion is something else entirely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's missing a nose, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
Yeah.
threatening. He has dreams of killing his father. He's threatened to rape his sister and his nephew, Tommen. He has these. He says horrible, ugly things to Catelyn. That Tyrion is a beast. They have whitewashed him in the show, but he is a beast.
They teach him how to joust on the back of a pig.
Oh yeah.
Or a dog. I can't remember which one was his, but
he is a killer, baby. He is a killer. So for all of my show watchers, please just go and get the books. You'll be so surprised.
Yeah.
In those books.
And as a fellow show only watcher, I have to completely agree with you, Misha. I read in the beginning, I just started with the show. Then after the show was done, I caught up with the rest of it while reading, what was it, the last one, Dance of Dragons, or whatever was the last one. And then I went back to book one, and I have to tell you, people, start reading, start audiobooking the books. It's the depth you see while reading, it's amazing. I mean, and I know we hear it everywhere, but hear it from somebody who has only, been watching the show. And then I started reading or audiobooking, multitasking at its best. It just blows your mind. You just gotta invest in it, make it your own gift for yourself. You're gonna love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, just going through these chapters.
I love you, Elmar. I love when you did that again where you go, you're gonna love it.
I'm sorry, do I have it? Oh my gosh.
No, I can tell that you're passionate about it, and I'm like,
yeah, I can help myself. Sometimes when I talk, my kids kind of say, Mom, you're a mom. You're not supposed to sound like that.
No. There's nothing wrong with being a MILF, okay? Be glad to be beautiful and being a happy, beautiful, passionate woman. There's nothing wrong with that. Be thankful for your womanhood. And I say that to every woman. Our needs are vast. Our needs are vast, and there's nothing wrong with saying that and expressing that. Don't let anyone hamper you. You're a grown woman. So,
no, my kids know better. My kids know better. I am not my parents. I'm not my mom.
Right.
And they should be happy about that. So in general, love my mom though.
We all love our moms.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so do I. Absolutely.
I do think this series, and I know this has probably been said and published and thought a million times over, but I think this series has gotten so many more people to pick up books that wouldn't otherwise pick up books of this genre, of this size, of I think it's like a really cool cultural thing that's brought a lot of people together in a lot of ways. And even just, I mean, not that a family member of mine had, we had sort of incidentally both read the books, and Sansa was the first person we discussed. He's like, wait a minute, her chapters are the worst. What do you mean? And like, oh, darling, you're just not reading them correctly. And so we just had this like crazy conversation, and I think people take away so many different things upon first, second, third interactions with them. And it builds like little micro communities. Like there's people at work I talk to about Game of Thrones, and that's probably the only thing we have in common. It's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I wrote was about Game of Thrones and the series. I didn't think that anyone even watched Game of Thrones. I thought I was the only one, and I was shocked to see how much content there was. It sparked so much imagination, so many wonderful videos on YouTube, and all of these wonderful forums. and it's a world.
When I found out that there were other people who were as obsessive, if not 1,000 times more obsessive, I was like, yeah, it was amazing.
You know, I think one of the reasons why we love it so much. I'm sorry, I think I'm speaking over Misha.
No, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I'm just realizing that I think I spoke to somebody about it before. One of the reasons I think people love reading about the characters here is because almost each one of them has a flaw. I mean, there are no perfect people, and I think we spoke about it on our Sunday stream that there's no perfect. I mean, there's obviously Princess Shireen. She's completely 100% good, but we see flaws everywhere. Jon, Daenerys, Sansa, anybody, pick anybody. There's a flaw, and they're real. They're real people. They're not these made up, always doing good, always making a right decision. I mean, who makes right decisions every day? Well, I don't. I wish I did. So we love that. I think we see ourselves, hopefully not in Joffrey or not in Cersei. I hope people don't tell me you have an inner Cersei in you. But we see people, we see ourselves a little bit, or at least in the mistakes.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. This may be, a book that is in the realm of sci-fi and horror, but this is just a story about people and their imperfections. And there's so many wonderful characters from beginning to end. I can't wait for the Winds of Winter. Where is the Winds of Winter? So we can see a few more people.
The human heart and conflict with itself. Doesn't he say that's what it's about?
Yes.
Or that's actually a William Faulkner quote.
Oh, well, somebody really smart said it. So.
And this is all that what this is about. It's just about people. Everyone has their flaws. Everyone is carrying a load, and you can really see if you look closely in those beginning chapters what those flaws are. I said this about Arya and her biting of her lip, and what that means, and Tyrion and his shortcomings, him feeling unloved and him turning to prostitutes. And then we have Eddard, who is trying to make sense of it and try to be, the best and most honest person he can be in a very treacherous world, and the conflict between that. And then we have Jon, struggling with his identity, struggling with being a bastard, struggling, just struggling from beginning to end, trying to find a place in his world, feeling that he has no place, in, south of the wall, feeling that he just belongs, at the wall, trying to find, a home for himself. And then we have Catelyn, with her struggles as a mother and as a woman and as a wife, and having a bastard son right up under you, and how that would make a wife feel. And it's just something that we all can relate to. I mean, certainly women. The women are in the forefront, in my opinion, in this book. And there are so many kinds of wonderful women here.
I think one of the things I loved about his interviews, is people ask, how do you write women so well? And he says something along the lines of, well, I consider them people, which there's that movie with Jack Nicholson as the writer. What's it called? And people are like, how do you write women so well? And he says, well, I think of a man and then I take away reason and accountability. But I think George really writes women well.
Yes, that's
and he
true.
Seems to respect them. I mean, there's a lot of horrible things that happen to women, but there's also a lot of really well written women, and quite. I mean, who wants to read who reads books from the perspective of a little girl? Sansa, meaning, so my brother-in-law was like, oh, those or family member, those chapters are horrible. I'm like, no. Here's why they're great. He's reading from the perspective of a little girl that's probably not what he would normally be drawn to if he went to a library. You know what I'm saying? And the men are well written too. I'm not dogging on that at all. They're just as great. But
yeah, it takes a special man to write a woman.
And for there was a lot of heat on, right, whatever happened to Sansa later on, but not even going there. I think whatever bad happens, since we're talking about women right now, whatever bad happens to women, it's not fun, obviously. Like, oh, why would you write this? Why would you make her go through it? Didn't you go through enough already? My perspective on it was that, well, at least you're seeing how the character is suffering. At least you're recognizing the suffering. So showing that suffering over there kind of puts a light on it. Not just mentioning, oh, this was done to her, that was done to her. He portrays it in a way that you can feel. You're not a woman, let's say you're a guy, but I guess with his descriptions and his however he writes, you can actually feel how somebody feels, even though you're not that, not that you're not a woman or you're not a guy. You can feel exactly how they feel. So I think there's a purpose to showing their suffering, because you're learning from it. You don't have to suffer, but if you are a person who can sense that stuff, you can learn from it. You can acknowledge it as actual suffering in a real world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. A lot of beautiful women and a lot of layered women who are struggling. And that's pretty much the thing that I really took, from this chapter, and, as from George as a writer. It takes a special man to see inside a woman's heart. And I think, in regards to the books and the chapters, he really does a good job, representing, the female perspective of it. I mean, the best chapters are from the women. I mean, Catelyn with her chapters, and Sansa with all that's swirling around her, being young and beautiful. And then we have Brienne, who is not beautiful, who does not, rise to that standard of beauty and what it must be like for her. And then we have Cersei, who was raised wrong, who is the product of incest. Tywin and Joanna were first cousins. So she's a product of incest and didn't have, a chance at being a good person from the beginning, on top of being in a loveless marriage for 20 years. Then we have Ariane, who is struggling with her sensuality, struggling with being beautiful and all the ramifications, and having her passion and wanting love for herself. Then we have Alaria and the Sand Snakes and those women. And then we have Marjorie and Olenna Tyrell and all these wonderful women in this. So many layers to these women, and I so appreciate George for that. No doubt about it. He certainly knows how to write a woman. I think we had a question, and if you have a question, go right ahead and put it in the chat now. But we had a question a little while back from Ricky Hunt. Was it Ricky, or let me see if I can track it down. And I think we had a question, and it had something to do with Jalabal Zoe. Oh, here it is. Yes, it was from Ricky Hunt. He asked, does anyone think that it was racist of Jane Poole to say she is frightened of Jalabal Zoe's dark skin? Now, as a Black woman with the dark skin here, let me go ahead and try to answer that. I don't think that a person is racist. I think that she have never seen a Black man before. And so I don't want to misconstrue a young girl who's never seen a Black person before as a racist person. There's a difference between, not accepting a person on account of their race and just never seeing a person before. I think that Jane Poole is just a young girl. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she hasn't seen a person with such dark skin. She's never been anywhere, just like Sansa has never been anywhere. And they don't have people with dark skin in the north. Jalabal Zoe is from the Summer Isles, and he's from across the narrow sea. So we don't see a lot of, people with the dark skin, in the show in Westeros in general. We see it across across the narrow seas in the fabled lands, but we don't see too many people with the dark skin, in Westeros as of yet. But as far as your question, Ricky Hunt, I don't think that it was racist. I think that she's just shocked. She hasn't been anywhere and she hasn't seen too many people. She's never seen a man with dark skin. But we're going to see a lot of people with dark skin later on, especially across the narrow sea.
I want to agree with that. And let's also remember King's Landing is a port city, if you will. So they have more exotic food. You see different fashions there. We're talking about two girls who have never been anywhere and never done anything, basically, come into somewhere that next to their experience is very worldly. And, they're coming from up there at the north, which is inland. I mean, they would have even been exposed to more if they had come from White Harbor.
Yep, that's where Sansa got her lemons from, was from White Harbor. They're looking at Jory's cloak, which is thin and drab, and Zalabar Zoe has feathers. So there's just this other element of, I would say, otherness that she's never seen before. And
yeah, that's a good point, Jennifer. You saying how exotic things are, and it's certainly more accepting and more multicultural in King's Landing than it ever really was.
Well, I tell you this, it's certainly more interesting and more multicultural in New Orleans, Louisiana than it is in Jackson, Mississippi. I'll give it that.
I wanted to mention that. Oh, sorry. I think I'm speaking over somebody.
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to mention, because I was listening and it reminded me, I completely forgot about it. I actually you probably know, I'm from Poland. I think it's mentioned that somewhere before. But I came here, quite old. I'm not going to say how old, but, it's been a while. I got here for the first time when I was, I think, 11 or 10 or 11. And here, this country was so foreign to me. I used to come here for summer vacation, so everything was new to me. I was raised in Poland, where all you saw was white people, and everybody was Catholic, and everybody was same. And I hated sameness. It was like a breath of fresh air, seriously. So I kind of see like when they see everybody that's different in the reactions, I was surprised at that. Basically, my reaction was complete awe and happiness at seeing everything that was different. And I was looking at people, and I had so much fun. And I was always like, why didn't I have that before? So everybody looks at it differently. I think the way I looked at it was complete joy to be here as a kid. And whatever, Sansa or Jane is 11, 12 or something. So it kind of reminded me just now how I felt. Right now, I don't even remember how it was back then. It's been forever. But now looking at it right now, it's like a glimpse of memory of not being exposed to anything versus here being exposed to everything and just loving it, taking it in. And I couldn't imagine anything else than that. Anyway, I just wanted to add my memory from long time ago.
No, that's certainly no problem, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Also, a good example of this, I believe, is in Feast, when we see that Marcella adapts rather quickly to the Dornish culture. Not only does she like Tristane, but it talks about how she adapts to the spicy food quite quickly, that she loves it, that she really likes it. Yeah, she was sad to leave King's Landing, but also look where she comes from. And not only that, Jane Poole is very low-born, so... Well, not very low-born, upper middle class, I guess.
Her dad is the steward, so that's a big job.
Yeah, so upper middle class, but, they come from somewhere they've never been anywhere, never done anything, never seen anything. And then we do get a bit about Marcella adapting very well to Dornish food and Dornish things or whatever. So, but yeah, this whole book, I love the way this book does portray all kinds of touchy subjects, so to speak, in a way for you to kind of get inside somebody's head and maybe understand their perspective a little bit better.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of different perspectives, and I just so appreciate that. And it's just a wildly countercultural and multicultural book and book series, and I appreciate that. I like a very multicultural mixing pot of things to talk about, and I just appreciate that so much. And he really does offer us that. I can't, I've so missed being here. I've missed this, I'm happy to be back here. It's so great. Are there any questions in the chat? Please post them now. Please post them now. Any final thoughts on the chapter and on the show? Any thoughts to the ladies of the panel?
I had one more thing. I mean, we already kind of discussed it, but kind of since this is a Sansa chapter, and her being misunderstood, but for us to see how she's growing, how her growth and her strength, even through what a lot of people see as her weaknesses. Another kind of a quote, I think it said here, it said eyes lowered, watching where she placed her feet. So I kind of see it as my perspective on it is that I see it as a survival tactic. I mean, she has her eyes lowered, so she knows she cannot do anything at that point. I mean, what would it do? She would kill one person, she would kill anybody, she would react, and then she would die. So she knows she's smart enough to be keeping her eyes down and to watch where she's walking, watching her steps. So I thought that as not, having her eyes down, being, scared. It's having her eyes down and thinking, watching what she's doing. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think that's a very wise point. That's a very good point. She's got to watch her steps now. She's certainly going to have to watch her steps in Clash of Kings, and she's very conscious of that now. She's not quite conscious of it yet, but when we move forward into the first chapter, the first Sansa chapter, she's really, really watching her steps. She's really trying her best to be careful what she says and what she does and who she speaks to and who she does not speak to. She's really much more conscious. She's not conscious of it yet. We haven't arrived there yet. But you bring up a good point, LMR, that she's very conscious. She's making her moves more carefully now. She's really trying to learn the Game of Thrones. And she's really trying to keep her head down and just wait, for something better to come along and making moves for herself to try to make something better for herself instead of, letting the world make the decision for her. She's gotten in touch with Baelish and who else? Dantos the Red. And even though she's keeping her head down, she's thinking. She's waiting for her moments. She's not just keeping her head down and watching her steps. She's making steps for herself, but she's doing it on the quiet. And she's learned to do things on the quiet. I remember a passage. She says, she finds out that Sir Janos Slint is sent to the wall, and she says out loud, "Oh, I hope that the others get him." But then she also tells herself, "I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that." And so she's trying to, guard her words more carefully. She's not as open as she once was. She's got her guard up, and she's getting her guard up now. But in this moment, in this chapter, she's not quite aware of it yet.
She wishes Jenna Slint dead, and she thinks to herself, she wishes there was a hero to kill him. Mm-hmm. This is something we're going to be discussing further in our Sansa part 2 with Fire Witch. We didn't get very far in our special stream Sunday at all, but the fact that later on John is actually the one to kill Genos Slint. And so yeah, there's some real stuff going on there about what Sansa says about Genos Slint and what ends up happening to Genos Slint. And if everybody will look into that closely, I think that they will see some things that they have previously not seen before. And I'll say it loud and I will say it proud. I love Sansa.
Yeah, I love the book Sansa too, no doubt about it. They made her an idiot in the show, but in regards to the books, I really love the natural progression of her. It's not as forced as it was, in the show. It's a natural turn. Little by little, she's getting it, and I do feel that by the end of the series, she's gonna have a handle of it, and she's gonna end up being a great leader.
See, that's one of the reasons we have to make people read the books. Because in the show, Sansa, like, people were hating on Sansa. I was like, sure, I can hate on her. Sure. After reading the books, how can you hate her? I mean, unless you're skipping Sansa chapters, then you can hate her. Obviously, you can hate her if you want to, but
there are so many parallels between Jon and Sansa. The fact that they both stand up for the weak, that they put themselves out on the limb there really are. People can get mad and dislike the chat and whatever you're going to do. That's all right.
Oh. Yeah, and I see here a lot of Sansa in here, Bridge 4, and I think somebody else mentioned Sense, and not Sense, and who somebody mentioned that, or anyway, I'm looking through the chat.
Yeah, Sansa and Sandor.
Yeah, I mean, there are clues, obviously, but after watching the video, which we should mention, I think, for whoever is into that other theory, after that presentation of book facts and show facts, I'm sold. I'm sold on something else than Sansa. I'm sorry, or not sorry.
Do I know what you're talking about?
Sorry?
Do I kind of know what you're talking about?
No, like the Fire Witch. She made that video about you know.
I mean, yeah, and I thought the same thing. Like, y'all, Sunday we did a special stream with Fire Witch. It's actually Fiora Hexa, I think is how you pronounce it. Which, at first when I heard her theory, I was thinking, what are you talking about? But it really is an amazing. It's a 55-minute video, and for all of you guys out there who make videos or who have attempted to make videos, that is no small feat. That is no small feat, whatever. You got to give her credit there, even if you don't agree with her, agree to disagree. The lady made a 55-minute video outlining everything from George R.R. Martin quotes to book references and parallels. It's really a beautifully well done video, even if you don't agree with the theory.
I'll certainly go ahead and check that out. No doubt about it. But I have to find the link for it. What's the name?
There's a link to it. There's a video we made on Sunday. Okay. The thumbnail is Jon and Sansa standing on the parapets.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you call them? And there is a link to her video in there. And we also discussed the video. And we're going to try. We're not doing anything on Easter, but we're going to try to have part 2 maybe next Sunday. And then a part 3 probably the Sunday after that. Because like I said, this is a 55-minute video. I mean, it can't.
But that 55 minutes, there's not even 1 minute wasted in that video. Like, not even 1 minute. And I know about wasting time because when I make my videos, there's a lot of time wasted. Her video is right to the point, and I keep talking about it like it's gold because it's gold. People check it out. If you don't have time, watch it on ×2 speed or 1.5. I think I watched it twice because it was so good. Yes, I so recommend it. It's not even 1 minute wasted.
She goes, "You crazy YouTuber, Fire Hexa. What are you talking about? What about the magical baby?" It's so good. I remember when I watched it here I put it on my TV with the YouTube going on the TV, and just was here by myself. And 55 minutes, that's some serious stuff for the long night. So, but she's very witty and very funny. And like I said, even if you don't agree with the theory, it's definitely 55 minutes worth of entertainment and a beautiful voice. What a beautiful German accent she has. I love it. I love it.
I certainly will go on and check that out. I haven't seen it yet, but I certainly will check it out for sure. I think we're moving on to 2 hours now, and maybe, in my opinion, I think it may be time to go ahead and shut this down. If everyone has anything else to say, we can go ahead.
Okay, well, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is for Sarah. What does that Sansa confirm? Because Marie Hill texted me in the middle of the night and I was already asleep. Sometimes I am a night owl, but she's like, I got a spoiler, Jennifer. Do you want to hear it or not? It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. I've been asleep. But is this about that? But no spoilers. But
no.
Sansa confirmed.
No, I was just being stupid and I was being silly. No, I mean, the breakfast, based on the Breakfast Club, the guy who was burned ends up with the redheaded brat. I don't see Sansa as a brat. Yeah, and so I just was just joking about that is predicting.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, I was just being silly. No, I'm not. I mean, I know there's a lot of fan fiction out there, and I like the idea of Moni. I'm not. No spoiling. I didn't.
No
spoiling. Is not confirmed. It was just a joke, like Clegane. You know what I mean? Like people just say dumb shit and get excited about it. Sansa and Sandor names are similar, and they both go through such suffering and such transformation that it would be interesting to see how they both come out on the other side.
I think that's
the appeal of people who like that relationship, but I'm not.
I mean, he certainly is connected to both of the Stark sisters in a very special way. I don't think anybody can deny that.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
He's protected both of them when he didn't have to, and we know in this world most people are out for themselves.
No doubt about it, and I appreciate him. Even though I don't quite buy into the Sand theory.
I don't I mean, I don't call it, Misha, I was going to say, I don't think it's not even a theory. It's just a cute relationship to think about for me. I'm not, yeah. Santan confirmed was just me being silly. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. No, I just something I didn't know. I was like, wait, what? You got me too. You got me.
Okay. This is your channel, Jennifer, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and step off.
No, let's go ahead and end this. We've been on for a long time, and okay, everybody. Jen, Lady Wolverton, thank you so much for coming. Next week, I believe we've got Eddard 6. Is that correct?
It's an Eddard chapter.
Definitely Eddard. It's either 6 or 7. I've lost my count, but I'll do it again. I know I can tell you this. It's chapter 31 audiobook.
Yeah, check out those books, everybody. Make sure you read, not just for the entertainment, but to strengthen your mind as well.
That's right. Okay, so you can get me at Facebook, Jennifer Wolverton, Messenger, Jennifer Wolverton, Twitter, Jennifer Wolverton 1966, Lady Wolverton's Den here in the Wolf Den. Thursday night book club. That's all I have. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. It's good to be back. It's very good to be back. Check me out on Misha Houston, even though I'm not going to be filming for a good while. Check me out on Facebook. Check out my Instagram account, even though I'm not posting anything right now, but check me out anyway, and I will be getting, slowly back into filming, later on, and, maybe in a few months or so. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Sara, for reaching out to me. Thank you, for giving me a call, Jennifer. And thank you, Living My Rhapsody. Thank you for subscribing. And I certainly appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much. Go ahead and do your outro if you have one.
I wasn't sure if Sarah was going to jump in. So you can, again, Misha and Jen, thank you so much for having me. I love these. I love talking, as you can tell. I guess I'm everywhere too. Like I think I'm on Facebook, not as much, and Twitter and Instagram, and on Living My Rhapsody, where I do my book stuff, and then on Living Reviews, where I review random things and kind of odd stuff. So again, thank you so much for having me. Sarah?
I think Sarah may have checked out.
Oh.
That's no problem. Thank you so much, Sarah. She's saying goodbye to everyone in the chat. And thank you all to our wonderful subscribers. Make sure if you haven't subscribed to the channels. And thank you all so much. I so appreciate it.
Jen, do you want to go through people we had in the chat? I don't have a good view of that. Do you have a good view of that?
Yeah, let's see, everybody in the chat. We had we had Jules Elizabeth, we had Moni G, House Sanchez, Bubba Husky, Ricky Hunt, Bridge 4, Jules Elizabeth, who hopefully is going to join us on a panel sometime soon. I think that's all we had that made themselves known in the chat.
Arya Stark was also here.
Well, a girl is.
And Brand is here, of course. And thanks to him for joining us. It's pretty much it. Thank you so much. I remember when there wasn't even one person in the chat. Now we got a lively thing going on here. So cool.
Thank you, everybody. And have a good night.
Everybody, thanks. And we'll see y'all next week.
Yep.